Hello and welcome to episode 75 of On My Studio Table. Almost without even realising it, I have passed some milestones on YouTube, Facebook and Instagram. And I thought to mark those milestones, I would host a Q&A session, maybe in a couple of videos' time, which means a couple of weeks. So if you have a question you would like to ask me, if you could put that down in the comments this week and next week, I'll do my best to answer them in the following video. So that's 2 weeks from now. So you have today, when this video airs, and in the next video, episode 76, to comment your questions underneath the video. So if you are on a device such as your computer, a phone or an iPad, you look underneath the video where it says more, and that will give you some other options, and also you'll have a space to put a comment. So I'm looking forward to your questions. Of course, I have the ultimate say about which ones I'm going to answer, but I'll do my best to be as honest as I can in answering your questions. Behind me, I have hanging another item in my torn collection. I talked to you about this extensively recently, and how it was based on the idea of mending things and using what you have even when they are in rags. I didn't mention that the different cultures have traditions about this, but particularly we know about the Japanese culture of borrow, where clothing and rugs and so on were mended within an inch of their lives, really, to keep them useful. Partly because of poverty, but also I think today we need to realise that we waste so much. This was a way to actually preserve things, not to buy something new every time, partly because of income, but also because everything was valued. If you had to weave and dye your own cloth and even spin the thread, you would not throw it away in a hurry. You would value it and treasure it. So that's another idea behind my torn collection. And if you go to my website at gonerustic.com, you will see more descriptions and explanations about this, also in my last video. This piece was made from offcuts of the wool wadding from a large quilt that I made some years ago. What I did was I dyed them with natural dyes. So the darker colours were done with rusty cans and eucalyptus leaves in the layers. So the rusty cans formed the core of the bundle when I put them in the pot. And the orange and pinkish colours were from avocado skins and seeds. And what I did was I embroidered the strips that decorate the front and the neckline without realising what I was going to do with them. I just thought I'd like to embroider these, so I embroidered them. And I used the vague leaf prints as inspiration for the embroidery. I've also added a vintage lingerie pin to it as a closure, and this makes a really nice statement on this top. It's all hand stitched. The whole torn collection, every item in it is hand stitched. There is no machine stitching at all. So I'm going to have this available at the Makers Market, which I'm attending at Swansea on East Coast, Tasmania, this weekend. I also have another skirt from my torn collection, similar to the one that I shared last time, but not quite the same because I used different materials and responded to them. But it is made out of cast-off knitwear and table linen, as the other one was. So it's all about respecting something that has had wear and has been used, and also creating something new out of it. And in a practical sense, this saves it from landfill, of course, and also rejuvenates something that would be considered to be waste. You might also notice that the hanger that this top is hanging on is made out of a branch. I'll just hold one up for you. Ian made these some years ago now. We had a wattle tree behind the gallery that I had at the time, and it needed pruning because it was hanging over our little shed that was at the back of the gallery. And I asked him if he could make hangers out of it. So he cut them to length. He used some old fencing wire to make the hook, and they have been so lovely to use. I only have 5 of them, or 6 maybe. I think it's 5. and they just look so rustic, and they really suit some of the things that I hang on the rack. At the moment I have, I think, 3 or 4 items hanging on these hangers. This video might be a little bit on the shorter side to usual. Usually they're between 35 and 40 minutes long, but I'm actually preparing for the market right now. So I have one more thing that I need to finish stitching, which I will do today, and I have started packing everything that I'm going to take. So I will take you around and just show you my preparations, and then give you a bit of a closer look at some of the new things that I've made especially for this event. So I hope you enjoy this video, and next week I will hopefully share some footage of the market and my stall setup. It actually looks like I'm taking over the house at the moment, but all of this will be consolidated by this evening, ready to pack into the car tomorrow morning. So I have little bits and pieces that I need to take, and these will be packed away into possibly an old suitcase. And then I have the mannequins that I'm going to take. One of them is here near the clock, and there is a tabard or a tunic that I'm also putting on this mannequin, but I'm just finishing the stitching on it. Here we have ready a small table and some of my small wall hangings, textile art wall hangings, and my pull-up banner, and some framed artworks, and also the scroll that I'm working on. If I get time, I will probably work on that. This is my vintage mannequin. I won't be taking this with me because it's probably going to take up too much room, but I probably will take the coat that I made and put that on a hanger on the clothes rack. This mannequin is dressed with a top and a skirt. Both of these have been made from garments and table linen that I've cut up and rearranged and made into new garments. And they're all hand stitched, as is the coat and the item that I'm working on at the moment. On the table I have an old hat box, and into this I'm going to put my journals and cards and anything else that will fit. Some of the things that I have on the table here are things I've made specially for this market, including these cards on the right, which are on eco-printed photo paper, which you use for your printer. And further along, the 4 journals that I've made this week ready for the market. The other items I already had made and are available online. The new things are not available online yet, but they will be after the market if they haven't sold. Here I also have a scroll called Galaxy, which will be for sale as well. The hat box and this suitcase I will also be using as part of the display. It's really good to get some height in the display, and so I use them for that, and sometimes I open the suitcase and have things displayed in it. I possibly will have my eco-printed fabrics displayed in this case. On top are 2 small wall hangings that are going to be for sale, but my fabrics are rolled up on cardboard tubes, and underneath is some eco-printed fabric that I have mended either with needle felting or with hand-stitched applique, and they will be for sale as well, but I'll also use them to drape on my little table. So I'm quite excited about this. I'm really looking forward to it. Being a maker's market, it will be really exciting to see what other people have available and what they've created, and hopefully it will also be a successful market profitably, not just for me, but for everyone who attends. These two little books I made out of remnants of my eco-printed fabric. And this one is called The Element of Touch because it's very, very textural, and I'll show you that in a moment. This one I haven't really given a name, I don't think. I will just check. Oh yes, Time for Tea. I've already made a little box set, I think, that I've called Time for Tea. But the reason I've called this Time for Tea will become obvious in a moment. So if I open it, you'll see that it has a little flap to cover the inside. And then I've used tea bags for the pages. And these were rectangular tea bags that opened out like a tube. So I emptied the tea leaves out. And then I sat a tea bag on some rusty pieces on a piece of cloth as part of a suggestion by Catherine Chambers of Catherian Cloth Tales. And it was to represent the moon phases, but I ended up making something else with them. And so the fabrics ended up in the other little book. But these were the tea bags, and some of the tea bags actually printed as well. That one shows you a rusty bottle cap. I think I used that mostly, but some of them also I think had some washers on them. I'll just have a look. I did have a large washer that I used. It might show up more on the fabric rather than on the tea bags. But I just thought they made great little pages. And I love this book just as it is, but it doesn't mean that you couldn't use it for a bit of stitching or collage or whatever. Even drawing in pen you could do on the tea bags themselves. So that's one little book. I used the offcuts from the tea bags as collage on the cover, and some t-shirt yarn that I used to tie up my bundles as a closure. This is the one that I've used to showcase the pieces of fabric that I sat the tea bags on. So I've used a kind of a stab binding for this, and just to hold everything together, and some of my eco-printed wool, of course, and a fragment from a piece of sheet music, which gave me the title Freedom of Touch. And then each page has the cloth that the tea bag and the rusty item sat on. And there you'll see the imprint or the rust print of the rusty washer, metal washer. And then the threads that pulled off my eco-printed wool, I laid separately on each page and couched it down just with a simple stitch and different colours of mostly pearl cotton. So each page is individual, and we had to leave them for about a day. I think a couple of them I might have left a bit longer than a day, but each page is individual. And it's not only visually pleasing, but it has a sense of touch because you can run your hands over it and you can feel the texture of the string, but also the cloth is quite a loose weave. Even the backs of the pages are interesting, so I haven't tried to hide them at all, which is something that I generally practice in when I make journals and books. So both of these are going to be available at the market, and then if they don't sell, they'll be available online at gonerustic.com. Earlier this year, I did some experimenting with eco-printing on the photo paper that you put through your inkjet printer. I was given these pieces, a big stack of them, and I don't really print photographs on my printer, so they sat in my cupboard for quite a while. And then when I experimented with the eco-printing, I was so thrilled with the response. I have other things that I've used these prints for as well. 2 series of little journals called Ebb and Flow and Inspire. But with these, I've just left them as they are, and I folded them in half to make like an outer cover on these greeting cards. So I've added a stick or a twig, and this is also part of an ongoing series that I'm doing called Twig. I've done quite a few different cards and journals, a lot of which have sold, and these are the latest incarnation of my Twig series. The card itself is recycled, made from recycled materials, and then inside it's blank so that you can write whatever you would like on it. And I've also stamped my business name and my website on the back and written down who designed and eco-printed it. And I've used wax linen thread for the pamphlet stitch to hold it all together and to knot the twigs on it. So I'll just show you them as I go. And I just love these prints. This one is of bracken fern and some eucalyptus leaves. They were also dipped in tea before I eco-printed them, and they were just put between layers of fabric and paper when I eco-printed them and rolled up. Some of them I did print flat as well. Possibly these ones I did. So just so pleased with the results on the eco-printed paper, and I know some of the people who saw that video did actually try it and were totally thrilled with the results. That one is a combination of blackwood leaves, which has a beautiful timber, which furniture used to be made of, and the early furniture is very dark. Some of the later furniture made out of blackwood is still paler, but still a dark wood, and it's a beautiful timber, very heavy and dense. So those are the cards that I've made, which will be available this weekend. They all come with a plain envelope as well. I quite often use recycled envelopes, but I have run out of those, so I've just used a plain envelope. But the card itself is recycled, and this is photo printer paper that I didn't know how to use, so it's been a good way to use things up instead of throwing them out. I made a set of 4 journal covers, and these are the latest things that I've made for this Maker's Market. I've had the inserts, the journals themselves, for quite a while, and I knew I would get around to making the covers for them one day, so this week was the one day. This one is some eco-printed Osnaburg, a cotton Osnaburg, sometimes they're linen, and then some scraps from my scrap box, including some vintage linen. And this one, obviously, I had wrapped around a rusty can. I think I shared the fabric a few videos ago, and I love how dark it turned out. And all I've done is just added some straight stitch, a little bit of cross stitch, some fly stitch, and some straight stitches here after sewing down the stick. I have done a little bit of machine sewing on these, but they're 99% hand stitched. What I did was I zigzagged around the edges before I did the hand stitching around the edge. So I've done some blanket stitch with a variegated sashiko thread actually, and then some back stitch on this one. On the others I've just done a running stitch, and that gives a nice finish, I think, to the journal. Then inside I've put my card with a description, and I've also put a stamp again of my website and so on, and the fact that this is also part of the Twig series. So this is Twig 1, and I've also written that on the back, TW1. This one is vintage silk, and it had some holes in it because it was very old. So what I did was, with all of these actually, I fused them onto very thin wadding, which has a fusible side on it. It's called Pellon. And then I mended the places where it was wearing thin or had holes. I also did a mend on the back here. And then I've done cross stitch again, straight stitches, like running stitch I should say, and attached a twig to it. These two, I guess you could call a pair, although they're still part of the Twig series. So this is Twig 3 and Twig 4 in the journal cover series. Again, I've used the twigs, scraps of fabric, a mixture of silk and cotton and possibly linen. This time I changed the stitching, so instead of putting a straight stitch or doing visible mending, I've done a little bit of feather stitch. So this is a variegated pink or rose colour, and this is a variegated teal green with a little bit of lime green in it, I think. And then I've matched the blanket stitched and running stitch edges with the thread that I've used for the feather stitch. So I've really enjoyed making these, and they are good sellers, and it's a good way to use up smaller pieces, especially the small scraps. This piece of eco-printed wool is actually the back of the tabard or tunic that I'm going to finish stitching today. It's a fairly simple design. All I'm going to do really is stitch the shoulders together, and then I've got a lovely found leather belt, it's actually vintage, to go with it, and a wool scarf which was hand knitted and hand spun by the person who gave them to me as pieces which had never been completed in a jumper project. The sleeves made a really great scarf, and I crocheted an edge on them using my eco-dyed wool from when I tie the bundles up for eco printing. So all these things will be available at the market and available online after the market as I get the time to list them in the online shop at gonerustic.com. Just to close, I would like to thank you so much for all the beautiful comments that you made to encourage my husband Ian, who hasn't been very well. I so appreciate it. It was just so lovely to have your thoughts, your prayers, your best wishes for him. He was really touched by your kind thoughts. Some of you also sent some via private message, and it was just so lovely. I appreciate it myself as well, because it has concerned me to see him not be able to do the things that he really would like to do and is used to doing, and the pain that he's been experiencing. So today is a new day, and today he has felt much better. Some days are good, some days he goes backwards a little bit, but I would generally say that he is gradually improving. He's been ill since July, as I mentioned last time, off and on. So just having the comments that you made and the encouragement has really made a difference. So thank you very, very much.